Lu Zhou has finally taken action again. Despite his advanced age and loss of cultivation, his millennia of accumulated killing techniques still allow him to stand at the peak. Just now, when Ming Shirin and Zhao Yu were about to be executed, Lu Zhou, hiding in the shadows, stepped forward on his own. After recognizing him, the surrounding soldiers retreated. Moly sneered and said, "Don't panic. In the 10 absolute array area, what is there to fear? You chose not to walk the path to heaven, but to barge into hell without a gate." After speaking, he waved his hand, and the 10 generals by his side immediately lined up and took a step forward. Outside the formation, only those with more than 5 leaves are considered masters. But now, inside the formation, everyone is treated equally, without distinction. Lu Zhou did not respond. As he flipped his right hand, the nameless sword appeared in the palm of his hand. Feeling the extraordinary power, he found it still usable. Everyone's faces showed horror. The old senior, Lu Bing, was shocked and dared not continue to act tough, retreating several steps. Moly bowed slightly towards Luan and smiled. "Your Highness, how about leaving this place to your concubine?" "Fine." Luan chuckled and sat down beside the Empress Dowager. "Thank you, Your Highness." Moly turned around, looked at Lu Zhou mockingly, and said, "These 10 generals are all experts from the Imperial Guards. 3 with 3 leaves, 1 with 6 leaves. Let them serve you, old man. It's not a disgrace to you. Kill his disciples first, then kill him. Your subordinate obeys." As soon as these words came out, the air became tense, and the atmosphere instantly turned intense. From a distant pavilion, Han Yuan laughed so hard he couldn't close his mouth. "Bishop, are you surprised? Delighted? Ha ha ha. It's said that one may live through natural disasters, but one cannot live through self-created disasters. Evil Sky Pavilion, from now on, will just be a pile of dust." Siwia, looking through the window and seeing the calm old man stroking his beard, was full of surprise and roared, "How dare you!" Upon hearing this, Han Yuan kicked the table beside him to pieces. "In a moment, your head will fall, and we'll see how arrogant you can be." In the heavens will garden, Zhao Yu and Ming Shirin shouted in unison, "Master." They didn't know whether to be happy or not. Lu Zhou ignored them and stared intently at Moly. "You dare touch my disciples?" Moly felt uneasy under his gaze, waved his hand, and commanded, "Kill him. You will be the heroes of Great Flame." Your subordinate obeys. Several generals responded and drew their sabers. The number 1 fierce general of the cannon camp, "Cannon fodder. I am here to teach you a lesson. Old Demon G, come and meet your fate." The general leapt forward, fiercely swinging his sword at Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou slightly shifted his body. His right hand flashed coldly, and in the blink of an eye, he sliced past the general, instantly appearing behind him. Immediately, a thud was heard, and the man fell stiffly to the ground, utterly powerless to resist. Killing a target, he earned 1,000 points of merit. It was extremely quiet in the heavens will garden, and everyone looked at the fallen body with disbelief in their eyes. Is this the old demon G from Evil Sky Pavilion? Weakened and without primal energy in the 10 absolute array, he can still kill? Moly's fingers twitched involuntarily, and when he gripped again, his palms were drenched in cold sweat. Silence fell all around. All eyes focused on Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou said indifferently, "You are mistaken. My life is nearing its end, and my cultivation is inferior to all of you. This 10 absolute array, I am quite pleased with it." Now, with the power of heavenly writing, he spoke the truth. With the support of heavenly writing and the nameless sword in hand, in terms of skill, in terms of killing experience, who could surpass him? Moly shook his head, full of disbelief, and ordered again, "Don't listen to his bewitching words. An old tree ready for the grave. Let's see how long he can last. You are the soldiers of Great Flame. Are you worse than an old thing on the verge of death?" Upon these words, a general stepped forward with his sword. "I'll go." This sword was clearly extraordinary, matched with the commanding presence of the general, like a crazed stallion. "Old thing, time to be buried." The general shouted loudly and struck down with his sword. Little Yuaner, Ming Shirin, and Zhao Yu cried out in alarm, worriedly shouting, "Master, be careful, Master." Clearly, their concerns were unnecessary. In the 10 absolute array, the so-called equality of all beings refers to the absence of primal energy in cultivators. But in the world, what is truly fair? Lu Zhou's gestures reversed upwards, lifting the nameless sword, then slashing upward at a 45-degree angle. The nameless sword sliced through the general's broadsword, and also across the general's neck. There was a snap, and the broadsword split in two. How is this possible? The soldier's eyes widened, his lips trembling, exhaling without inhaling, as blood gushed from his neck. Silence. The end. Killed 1 target. Earned 1,000 merit points. This life, in return to my disciple Zhao Yu. As Lu Zhou spoke, he felt the remaining extraordinary power of heavenly writing. Without unleashing divine powers, it was like a trickle, keeping his spirit exceptionally elevated. Luan realized the seriousness of the situation and immediately stood up to command, "You, and you, go!" 2 soldiers upon hearing this quickly charged forward. Your subordinate obeys. At this moment, all tricks become meaningless. What really determines the outcome is the art of killing. Little Yuaners suddenly realized why their master forbade the use of primal energy during their training. It was for a day like today, for such fighting and struggle. Lu Zhou, calm and composed, tightly gripped the nameless sword with his thumb, stepped forward, and sliced across the bodies of 2 men at a bizarre angle. These 2 lives, in return to Jian Aijian. Upon hearing this, Jian Aijian was so moved he almost cried. 2 lives, one more than Zhao Yu. He was deeply touched, remembering those who followed him, knowing from the moment they followed him that they might die. Life is as light as a feather, death as light as a breeze. Perhaps no one will ever remember them, but they faced death willingly, content to do so. Jian Aijian was deeply moved, and his impression of the old demon Qi from Evil Sky Pavilion changed once again. What is a demon? What qualifies as demonic? To steal wisdom, to corrupt the path, to betray virtue. Is this what makes one a demon? Having seen the world for so long, everyone is a demon. Seeing his own men consecutively slain by Lu Zhou, Luan's gaze darkened, filled with extreme anger. You too, go. I want to see how long he can hold out. Upon these words, 2 generals immediately positioned themselves to the left and right, forming a pincer attack, and with a gust of blade wind, charged at Lu Zhou. Though they could not use primal energy, as cultivators of the quenched body realm, their physical qualities were far beyond those of ordinary people. With a step, the ground instantly sunk, forming a pit. Holding sharp blades, they fiercely chopped down. Lu Zhou remained unflustered, pivoted in place, the nameless sword spun in his palm. Stepping forward with a sword drawn bow, he thrust. Then, the 2 generals found that the countless battle scenarios they had envisioned in their minds were instantly dissolved by the incredible move before them. With their swords raised in the air yet to fall, they felt their lives swiftly draining from the cut. Breathing and heartbeat became oppressive and uncomfortable. The smell of blood rushed towards them. As they fell, the world spun around, and everything turned to darkness. 2,000 merit points were credited, causing no fluctuation in Lu Zhou. His gaze swept coldly ahead, and he said, "These 2 lives, in return to my disciple Ming Shirin." Upon hearing this, Ming Shirin excitedly slapped Jian Aijian beside him. "Did you hear that? I also have 2 lives." The scorching sun made it difficult for everyone to open their eyes, and even the smell of blood in the air became dry and pungent. What was once the serene and pleasant heavens will garden had in a moment turned into a battlefield. In the eyes of the pavilion Lord Ji, there were no magnificent displays of primal energy. Even Moly lacked a dazzling forceful energy. 6 people were slain, relying solely on combat on the battlefield. This scene left everyone feeling extremely uneasy, especially since the 6 who died were not minor figures. They were from the Imperial Guards. Moly, as if waking from a dream, waved his hand and said, "Generals, fall back." At this time, even the most formidable masters were of no use. It would be better to let ordinary soldiers take over. How many heroic figures in history have been overwhelmed by the tactic of overwhelming numbers? No matter how skilled, one cannot withstand the attacks of so many. Luan bellowed, "Kill the old demon Ji. A reward of 10,000 taels. He who does will be crowned and appointed as a minister." This statement had 2 implications. 1, he was determined to eliminate Evil Sky Pavilion. 2, he aspired to declare himself emperor. With such a heavy reward, there will surely be brave souls. Nearby soldiers, armed with long spears, surged forward like a tide. "Old senior, I'm coming to help you." Jiang Aijian rushed forward, and to disguise his approach, he didn't even bring the dragon roar sword. He appeared somewhat frail. Ming Shirin and Zhao Yu followed behind. "It's just killing. I haven't felt this way in a long time." "And me, senior brother, senior sister." Little Yuan waved her fists, also wanting to join the battle, but Lu Zhou shook his head. "Just protect yourselves." With that, his nameless sword trembled slightly, and he leaped toward the soldiers ahead. A millennium of killing skills and experience seemed to truly merge with Lu Zhou at this moment. 1 sword, 1 life. Block him. Lu Zhou moved like lightning, weaving through the soldiers. Spears broke and fell to the ground. Wherever the nameless sword went, there were only lost souls. Wave after wave of soldiers swarmed forward. Lu Zhou's figure now on the left, now on the right, his moves clean and decisive, without dragging his feet. Ming Shirin, ever so clever, marveled inwardly at his master's combat prowess. He glanced at the nameless sword in his master's hand and guessed that this sword was no ordinary weapon. The scene quieted down once again. Lu Zhou's demeanor remained natural. A drop of red blood glistened on the tip of the nameless sword and plop fell to the ground. "If you wish to die, I do not mind killing a few more." Where Lu Zhou passed, fallen soldiers piled up into a makeshift path. Many soldiers, holding their spears, kept retreating, ultimately still afraid. Unable to continue the charge, Moly's face turned ashen and she stepped back. She never expected the old demon Ji from Evil Sky Pavilion to be so formidable. Block him for me. Anyone who flees will be executed according to military law." Upon hearing this, hundreds of soldiers reluctantly charged again. Lu Zhou saw this and shook his head slightly. The next moment, a loud noise was heard, and a beam of light fell on Heaven's Will Villa. After the light column disappeared, a fierce beast with 3 horns appeared. In the 10 absolute array where primal energy could not be summoned, even without primal energy, the beast's sharp fangs and ferocious body were not something these ordinary soldiers could withstand. How is this possible? Realizing Lu Zhou's intention, the beast charged into the crowd under their horrified expressions, lifting its paw and sending a soldier flying. Hundreds of soldiers had no time to think, causing a great chaos in the crowd, dropping their spears and fleeing in all directions. The beast rampaged through, sending any soldier in its path flying. It came to a halt beside Ming Shirin and others, sat down cross-legged like a guardian deity, deterring anyone from approaching. Man, if the old senior had this thing earlier, who would dare mess with us? Jian approached the beast, attempted to pet it, but the beast growled deeply, scaring him into immediately withdrawing his hand. Little Yuan chuckled and remarked, "It doesn't like you." Lu Zhou ordered, "Protect them." The beast obeyed, lying down and not attacking any further, probably due to the restrictions of primal energy. It was clever enough to conserve its strength. Moly and Luan were stunned. This was completely beyond their expectations. Nevertheless, many soldiers still stood in front of the two. Lu Zhou's gaze swept over the crowd and he slowly said, "I have said before, within the 10 absolute array, I am invincible." Seeing the old devil Lu Zhou steadily approaching, Moly, hiding behind the soldiers, begrudgingly ordered, "Shut down the formation." Jian shook his head and laughed. "Shut down the formation? Once the 10 absolute array is activated, it cannot be interfered with for half an hour. Didn't you know that when you got the blueprints and replicated it?" Moly looked at Jian. "How do you know?" Jian did not respond, still maintaining a carefree and playful demeanor. No one would associate him with the current third prince. At this moment, Luan shouted, "What are you waiting for? Fourth brother, get your men up. After all, they are soldiers from the city's edge." Lu Bing shrugged and laughed. "Brother Emperor, it has nothing to do with me. I only have a few men, and they need to protect me." After speaking, he quickly turned and bowed to Lu Zhou. "Old senior, I have nothing to do with this. I can only protect myself." Lu Zhou did not look at him, but continued stepping forward, the atmosphere becoming oppressively tense. Moly and Luan became anxious, feeling a suffocating despair as if heaven and earth would not respond to their calls. Just then, a large number of black cavalry charged into Heaven's Will Garden from outside. Upon seeing this, Moly's face immediately brightened. Luan felt reassured and immediately ordered, "Black cavalry, heed my command. Kill anyone from Evil Sky Pavilion on sight." The black cavalry entered the scene, with a tall horse at the forefront charging directly at Moly. "Make way! Fan Shouwen is here to rescue." Hearing the name Fan Shouwen, a smile appeared on Moly's face, and she moved forward to greet him. "General Fan, your timing is perfect." Before she could finish, her eyes suddenly widened in disbelief. Everyone froze, drawn to the sudden sound. It was the sound of a sword piercing through flesh, easily recognized by the soldiers on the battlefield. The leader of the black cavalry, who was re-established in his position by Moly's support. How could he suddenly strike at him? Moly's throat seemed to bubble up with weakness. He slowly lowered his head to look at the sword drenched in blood in his abdomen, then raised his head to look at the towering figure of Fan Shouwen. That silver mask, and those eyes filled with murderous intent. When he saw these eyes, he understood. "Is it you?" Lin Luo's hoarse voice resounded. "Yes." "How dare you, Fan Shouwen? What are you doing?" "My right-hand man." His anger was burning. This sword from Fan Shouwen had struck not only his beloved, but also his right-hand man. It turned out that Lin Luo had spent a long time infiltrating the black cavalry camp, killed the fake Fan Shouwen, and then took his place. What an ironic story, impersonating himself. The four generals were incredulous. The Moly they swore to protect had been stabbed like this. What now? Before they could react, Lin Luo suddenly raised his voice and shouted loudly, "By the Emperor's decree, execute the traitor, the offender Moly, and 1,000 of her accomplices, all to be judged collectively." Upon hearing this, the black cavalry soldiers who had followed him were stunned. Wasn't it agreed upon when they came? To kill the fourth prince, to kill the demon of Evil Sky Pavilion. Why suddenly attack Moly? Luan snapped back to reality, his expression gradually turning crazed, his fingers trembling, unsure how to respond. "Very well. You really think this prince has only these tricks? Old demon Ji, there's your disciple Siwuya in that building. I'll kill him right in front of you." As the voice fell, Han Yuan, holding Siwuya by the collar, leaned out and declared loudly, "A bunch of useless ones. Can't even kill an old man within the 10 absolute array. 7th junior brother, Siwuya." Xiao Yu and Jian were both shocked. Although Ming Shirin has always had a poor impression of Siwuya, considering him cunning and manipulative, he still felt angry seeing this scene. Lu Zhou also looked over, confirming that it indeed was Siwuya, his disciple, to end up in such a state. Han Yuan laughed wildly. "Today, I will chop him in front of everyone." Upon hearing this, Lin Luo snorted coldly, "You dare." With that, he gripped harder, and Moly immediately groaned, with a lot of blood spurting from her mouth. However, unexpectedly to everyone, Moly suddenly moved forward, embracing death. The blade went straight through, chillingly cold. "Avenge me, brother." Moly spoke her last words intermittently. Lin Luo's face was icy as he slashed Moly again with his knife, angrily saying, "Avenge your grandpa." Moly fell backward, blood slowly spreading on the carpet. "No, sister." A cold voice came from outside Heaven's Will Garden. The 10 absolute array covered the entire villa, and his brother Bama had already been stationed outside according to the plan to prevent anyone from escaping. But plans cannot keep up with changes. Luan looked up and said solemnly, "Bama, the death of Consort Li, I will avenge her." A hoarse voice came through the clouds. "The sister is dead. No, you all can be buried with her." A purple energy formed cloud-like formations outside Heaven's Will Garden. "Bama is not Moly. His target is only one person. That is the 4th Prince Lu Bing, the mortal enemy who slaughtered countless people of Lulan." Han Yuan furrowed his brows, grabbed Siwuya, and shouted angrily, "Useless. All useless." In the end, It still depends on this general. Siwuya lifted his head, chuckled, and said, aren't you pleased with yourself a bit too early? Still talking tough. Han Yuan pressed Siwuya's head against the window. Just one swing, and his head would hit the ground. Suddenly, a voice from outside exclaimed, the formation is gone. The people in Ru North City immediately felt refreshed. The oppressive feeling completely vanished. The air flowed, clouds rolled, and unfolded. Everything returned to normal. At that moment, everyone realized that the upcoming battle would no longer be one of equal footing among all beings, nor would it be a struggle of ordinary people. Rolling purple waves enveloped the villa, signaling the presence of a great witchcraft formation. Seeing this, Luan immediately commanded, what are you waiting for? Capture old Demon G. If ordinary combat won't work, surely the four great generals together could capture old Demon G. A resonant sound as four avatars converged and rushed towards Lu Zhou. Han Yuan sneered, the knife, bring it. Hearing this, the deputy beside him immediately drew his sword and approached. However, the sword did not end up in Han Yuan's hand, but suddenly swung towards his outstretched arm. As it severed Han Yuan's arm, it also sliced across his neck. A line of blood appeared, blood splattering. Han Yuan froze, turning to look at his most trusted subordinate. How is this possible? Siwuya gave a calm smile. Didn't I say, aren't you pleased with yourself a bit too early? Seeing this, the other deputies became furious, crying out as they charged over. The deputy who killed Han Yuan did not hesitate to protect Siwuya, whispering, Master, you've suffered, hurry and go. However, just at that moment, Siwuya witnessed a scene he would never forget. What was that? In the distance, among the four avatars, Lu Zhou had already leaped into the air. Standing on a blue lotus, he let out a thunderous shout, and a booming explosion like thunder immediately filled the sky. All the extraordinary power of heavenly writing burst forth at this moment. The blue lotus bloomed, expanding like blue fireworks all around, obscuring Lu Zhou's figure. He seemed to be amidst a blue ocean. The four closest generals and their avatars, under the wave of the blue lotus, vomited blood, were thrown backward, and died on the spot without any resistance. The power of heavenly writing that Lu Zhou now wielded was far beyond what it once was. The close-range burst of energy was too much for the four to withstand. Kill Siwuya and claim the reward. Other deputies charged forward with their swords. At the same moment, the blue lotus light from the sky covered the entire pavilion like seawater, and the purple clouds rapidly retreated. Siwuya's shirt burst open, and the large bind character on his chest was washed away by the energy of the blue lotus. Han Yuan's deputies leapt into the air, their forceful energy crisscrossing, and their sword energies converged. Siwuya's lips curved into a slight smile. I'm back. He raised one palm, and thousands of forceful energy darts formed in his palm, shooting towards Han Yuan's deputies. Screams followed immediately. Siwuya didn't even glance at those men, already knowing the outcome. The moment he landed, his expression was calm, and he stood firm. In the nearby treetops, a figure in a green robe hovered, speaking with a gentle and polite voice. Sorry, I thought you wouldn't be able to handle it. After hearing this, Siwuya nodded, urgently said, there's no time to explain. Hurry, go! Seriously, hurry. Even facing Han Yuan, he showed no emotion, but the scene of the blooming blue lotus made him furrow his brows. Yanrong smiled and said, don't worry, Master has overused primal energy and has no strength left. Siwuya interrupted, trust me. Yanrong wiped the smile from his face, and his expression became serious. The two of them then darted toward the outskirts of Ru North City. At the moment when Lu Zhou's extraordinary power had exploded, and there was no longer enough energy to support him, he slowly descended, his vision gradually returning. He immediately looked in the direction of the pavilion, where he saw Yanrong and Siwuya moving like lightning, heading toward the city's outskirts. Whitezerd, with a soft shout, Whitezerd swiftly appeared, stepping on a cloud, and caught Lu Zhou. The rest is up to you. After speaking, Lu Zhou mounted Whitezerd and chased after the two of them. As he flew past the pavilion, he paused for a moment and glanced downward. He saw a person lying on the ground, slowly raising an arm, pointing toward the sky, murmuring, Master, I'm glad you're safe. Lu Zhou didn't have time to pay attention to the person and continued his pursuit. He couldn't help but wonder how Siwuya had managed to make so many people so loyal to him. After Lu Zhou left, a small, delicate messenger bird flew over and landed on the person's finger. It gently pecked the blood on his finger before flying off again. Moments later, Yi Zhixing's figure swept through like a shadow, picking up the person and vanishing without a trace. The Heavenswell Pavilion was silent. Once the primal energy was regained, Bayan's nostrils flared, looking ready to explode in anger at any moment. After witnessing its power, the soldiers, cultivators, and even black cavalry around it no longer dared to underestimate the mount. Ming Shirin, Jian Aijian, and Lung Luou revealed their avatars one by one. In just an instant, the sight was enough to shock everyone. 3 leaves, Ming Shirin. 5 leaves, Jian Aijian. 8 leaves, Lung Luou. No number of avatars could compare to the shock of that 8-leaf golden lotus. Whether in terms of height or the number of leaves, it was enough to amaze everyone. Ming Shirin and Jian Aijian now somewhat regretted revealing their avatars. No number of avatars could compare to the shock of that 8-leaf golden lotus. Don't look at me like that. You think being a 5-leaf is impressive? Hearing Ming Shirin's words, Jian Jian Aijian nodded repeatedly. Yes, you're amazing, I admit it. This is no joking matter. A 3-leaf defeating a 5-leaf. This kind of unexpected combat, he admitted he couldn't manage. Acting cowardly is not shameful, especially with an 8-leaf like Luou present. No matter how many leaves others had, they all paled in comparison. Luou's cultivation hadn't recovered, but showing an instant of 8-leaf was not difficult. He indifferently watched Moly, who lay motionless on the ground. Jian Aijian walked over, speaking with some disdain. That's really sad. Sad? It is quite sad. Luou gathered his forceful energy, controlling the knife, and let it fall again toward Moly's body. Jian Aijian turned his head away. I'd rather not watch this. It's freaking me out. Probably only Luou could do something like this. Multiple forceful energy blades fell on Moly's body, chopping it into pieces, grinding bones and scattering ashes, making everyone's scalp tingle and hair stand on end. On reflection, Luou and Moly were mortal enemies. Moly controlled Luou for so many years and did so many disgusting things. Chopping into pieces was probably not enough to quell his hatred. The second Prince Luan, seeing this scene, trembled with anger. Luou straightened his clothes, as if nothing had happened, and casually explained, such powerful witches need to be handled with care. If controlled as puppets or resurrected or something, it can be very troublesome. Jian Aijian nodded repeatedly, moving further aside. No need to explain, I believe you. Isn't that enough? Luan couldn't help but threaten. Fan Shouwen, if you don't give me a perfect explanation, you will bear the consequences. Does someone need to explain my actions to you? Someone? Luan looked stunned, full of confusion. At that moment, Jian Aijian picked up an ordinary saber from the ground, smiling as he stepped closer. Your Highness the Second Prince, do you not know who this is? He is Luou, the most notorious figure on the blacklist from 300 years ago. Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked, while Luan still glared fiercely at the two, coldly saying, what of Luou? If you kill someone, you must pay with your life. Jian Aijian chuckled. You seem to like controlling other people's fates. That's right, Jian Aijian, I will not let you go. Don't. I cherish my life. Your Highness, please don't stoop to my level. Jian Aijian walked over with an easygoing expression, which made Luan despise him even more, reducing his fear of Luou's 8-leaf avatar by half. Kneel before me. Jian Aijian wasn't angry, still wearing a cheerful expression. Seeing this, Ming Shirin couldn't help but curse. Why waste words with him? Beat him up first, then let the master deal with him when he returns. Luan flicked the dust off his sleeve, confidently saying, kneel. Jian Aijian nodded, smiling. All right then. A crisp and distinct sound rang out, the unmistakable sound of a knife entering a body, clear and easily recognizable. Luan's eyes widened, staring at Jian Aijian in disbelief. Jian Aijian's eyes twinkled with amusement as he gripped the handle tightly, driving the knife deep into Luan's body. Luan stood frozen, eyes wide. Drop after drop of blood slid down the blade, falling onto the stone pavement, splashing into large, bright red plum blossoms. In Heaven's Will Garden, it was so quiet you could hear the sound of blood dripping. When Luou witnessed this scene, he merely showed slight surprise and raised his hand to warn, whoever dares to act, Ling will kill. In the corner, the fourth Prince Lu Bing was so shocked that he raised his hand, but it was as if something was stuck in his throat. Unable to utter a word, he shook his head helplessly and slowly lowered his arm. Life and death are fated. Wealth and honor are from heaven. One must walk the path they choose, even if on their knees, and if it leads to death, blame neither heaven nor others. The last breath in Luan's belly came out through his mouth. He summoned all his strength to reach forward, but Jian Aijian did not dodge, still with a smile in his eyes, his nonchalant demeanor tinged with a trace of tragedy. The lives of 1,000 from Jingha Palace will forever watch you pay for your sins. Hearing this, Luan's eyes widened dramatically. Jian Aijian shook his head, his palms suddenly surged with forceful energy, driving the long knife completely through Luan's body. Luan fell to his knees and died instantly. Jian Aijian chuckled, reverting to his carefree demeanor. I didn't mean to. I didn't know he couldn't take a stab. Ming Shirin looked at Jian Aijian speechlessly. Ming Shirin, feeling intrigued, asked, what about the rest? Looking at those haughty faces, he was unusually excited, laughing. I just freaking love this feeling of bullying with power. Oh no, I mean bullying with beasts. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou, riding Whitesword, sped through the forest at high speed. Soon, he felt his targets getting closer, calculating in his mind. Given Yanrong and Siwuya's speed, they definitely couldn't outrun Whitesword. Just chase them, miscreants. See where you can run. Whitesword understood its master's intent, flying over mountains and through forests, speeding swiftly. But just then, Lu Zhou suddenly realized something was amiss and quickly called out, Whitesword. Whitesword suddenly stopped and raised its head, letting out a loud neigh. Bah! The sound wave blasted outward at a high speed, with impressive force. Yanrong and Siwuya were caught off guard, nearly falling. Fortunately, Yanrong's cultivation was profound. Though startled, he quickly adjusted his posture and gradually stabilized. Second brother, don't panic. Siwuya swept his gaze upwards, eyes wide, watching the movements in the sky. Yanrong's expression remained calm. I'm not panicking. It seems like he wasn't followed. No need to be afraid even if we are chased. His command of facial expressions was impeccable, showing no sign of distress. Siwuya said somewhat helplessly. Second brother Cultivator's cultivation is deep, naturally you're not afraid. Mainly, my divine spell was just released. I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. Please carry me for a while. Let's leave quickly. That's fine. Yanrong agreed readily, and the two flew towards the cloud-illuminating forest, occasionally looking back as they flew. Master probably didn't follow us. Yanrong nodded, asking with a hint of curiosity, your spell is undone? Siwaya, still shaken by what he had seen in the pavilion, replied, I don't know how it happened. Anyway, it's good that it's undone. Second brother, where are we going? Yanrong calmly responded, to the cloud-illuminating forest. Siwaya frowned. Now. After saying that, Yanrong sped up, flying rapidly towards the destination. At this time, Luou did not continue to pursue. After exclaiming something's not right, he suddenly realized that all his tool cards were in cooldown. Embarrassing. He had been chasing for so long, and it was only in that moment that he completely forgot about this. A bit overzealous. The extraordinary power of heavenly writing was also exhausted in that instant, and if he were to chase alone like this, wouldn't he just be asking to be beaten up by his disciples? Luou stood on Whitesard, checked the system interface for his tool cards, and saw that the cooldown time was still nearly 5 days. Whitesard, are my disciples Xiaoyu and Ming Shireen in danger? Whitesard raised its head and made a strange noise. Luou stroked his beard. As long as you understand me, let's head back. Just as Whitesard was about to turn around to return, a black flying chariot swept past. The flying chariot was not fast, rather it moved leisurely, as if sightseeing. The waves stirred by primal energy were not smooth, suggesting that there might be some malfunction with the flying chariot. From its trajectory, it seemed to also be coming from North City. There are no human cities in other places. How could a flying chariot appear here? Luou felt puzzled. This area was basically far from human cities, northward being only mountains and forests. Generally speaking, human cultivators do not leave their cities or sects. Once entering a forest area, they might encounter some dangerous beasts. Moreover, if they were in groups to capture tameable mounts, they wouldn't be riding a flying chariot, which doesn't make sense. Luou, riding Whitesard, approached the flying chariot to see from the outside whose it might be. Full speed ahead. A bunch of incompetents. As soon as they approached, noisy conversations could be heard. Sect Master, we really can't accelerate anymore. That energy burst earlier damaged many of the formations on the flying chariot. Let's abandon the chariot and flee. Hearing these conversations, Luou thought, it seems they also ran out from North City. Indeed, enemies often cross each other's paths. Unfortunately, he had no means to capture them now. Forget it. Consider yourselves lucky. Just as Luou was about to steer Whitesard away, suddenly, a black figure shot out from the flying chariot, darting towards him like lightning. This was the art of stealth. Moreover, the opponent was a master. Luou frowned and thought, Whitesard, stop just assisting. However, as the black figure approached through the air, preparing to attack from above, upon closer look, auspicious aura, Whitesard, looking again at the old man on Whitesard's back. Old Demon G, realizing something was amiss, he quickly halted his motion, flipped backward, and knelt in midair. Junior greets the elder. It's a misunderstanding. All a misunderstanding. Luou's expression remained calm, carefully observing the face of this black figure. Duan Shing, since the Battle of the 10 Sorcerers in Tangzi Town, where the former master of the demon-slaying sect, Rinbu Ping, died, Duan Shing had become the new sect master. They hadn't seen each other since then, and unexpectedly met here. Duan Shing, extremely embarrassed, said sheepishly, Elder, weren't you in North City? How come you were here? As soon as the words left his mouth, he regretted them. Isn't that a stupid question? What are they riding? My dilapidated flying chariot is about to fall apart. Not even in the same league in terms of speed. Luou raised an eyebrow. You're asking me? No, the junior dares not. Duan Shing quickly shook his head and waved his hands. Luou asked indifferently, where are you heading? Hearing Luou's question, Duan Shing stammered, going to check out the excitement. What excitement? You wouldn't know, but your eldest disciple and second disciple have arranged a duel at Cloud Illuminating Peak. Not many know about this. I took the liberty to go see for myself. Hearing this, Luou snorted coldly. My rebellious disciples, Yu Xinghai and Yu Shanrong, are to duel at Cloud Illuminating Peak. You're saying that's true? Duan Shing answered earnestly, yes. Luou's gaze fell on Duan Shing's shaky flying chariot, saying coldly, Duan Shing, don't play tricks in front of me. A battle of this level isn't something you can just go and watch. Hearing this, Duan Shing immediately broke out in a cold sweat. I dare not. To be honest, I knew you were in North City, and I witnessed your display of power. The demon-slaying sect is not what it once was, increasingly in decline, and the brothers need to survive. But the Underworld sect gives us no leeway, ruthlessly pursuing us to the end. I initially wanted to visit you at Evil Sky Pavilion, but when I found out you weren't there and had gone through some trouble to reach Rue North, the flying chariot was damaged, and I've been chasing all the way, afraid of missing you. It was truly a misunderstanding just now. I thought we were under attack. As he finished, Duan Shing muttered to himself, you're riding Whitesard. Even if it's slow, it can't be slower than this broken flying chariot. Who knew such a slow flying chariot could catch up to you? It was really scary. Luou stroked his beard and nodded. Come with me to Cloud Illuminating Peak. Duan Shing was overjoyed and hurriedly moved closer. At your command, Elder, this is my first time riding the legendary legendary whitesword. Saying this, he attempted to jump onto whitesword. Seeing this, Luou sharply commanded, "Scram!" Duan Shing immediately retreated in awkward embarrassment, chuckling sheepishly. The landscape is beautiful, the scenery pleasant. Would it not be a pity not to appreciate it properly? After saying this, Luou steered whitesword slowly towards the flying chariot. Duan Shing quickly followed behind, shouting with a laugh, "Understood, elder, after you." He swiftly landed on the flying chariot and shouted, "What are you idiots standing around for? Hurry up and welcome the elder." Hearing this, the disciples of the demon-slaying sect bowed deeply, not daring to breathe loudly. A female cultivator considerately brought over a set of clothes. Luou nodded, not saying much, and changed into them. "Please, take a seat, elder. This flying chariot is a bit broken and not very fast. Please don't mind." Luou waved his hand, his face expressionless. "No matter, slower is better." At the same time, he glanced at the time on the interface. There was no need to rush during this period. The flying chariot moved slowly as if it were drunk. Luou stroked his beard while admiring the mountainous landscape. As evening approached, the flying chariot finally neared Cloud Illuminating Peak. Duan Shing reported, "Elder, we have arrived at Cloud Illuminating Peak. However, your disciples might not appear for another 2 days." Luou raised an eyebrow. "So soon?" Duan Shing scratched his head, stunned. "You call this fast? We've been flying so long. The sun is about to set, and it feels like I could fly faster myself." Then, seizing the opportunity to gain favor, he smiled and said, "I personally took the helm, going full speed, not daring to waste the elder's time." Luou did not respond, merely passing by with a displeased expression. Duan Shing felt awkward, thinking to himself, "What did I do wrong? I've been quiet all the way, afraid of disturbing the elder's mood, and yet he's still unhappy." Luou stood up, looking down at Cloud Illuminating Peak. Familiar memories came flooding back, like scenes hidden deep in his mind, gradually surfacing. Cloud Illuminating Hermitage. He saw the temple on the mountainside of Cloud Illuminating Peak, nearly forgetting that Cloud Illuminating Hermitage was located here. The elder is well-traveled and knowledgeable. Indeed, there is a temple here, but it's a nunnery, known as Cloud Illuminating Hermitage. After Duan Shing finished speaking, he pondered to himself, Cloud Illuminating Hermitage is, after all, a nunnery, inherently for women. They are all men. It wouldn't be appropriate for them to stay there, would it? A cultivator can reside anywhere, unaffected by cold, even able to sleep hanging from a tree branch. Land. Hearing Luou's command, Duan Shing quickly maneuvered the flying chariot, gently descending, as commanded. Before long, Luou and his group arrived outside Cloud Illuminating Hermitage. "I'll knock on the door." Duan Shing, seizing the initiative, didn't hesitate. He jumped down from the flying chariot and went forward to knock on the door. Moments later, the door opened and an older nun walked out. Luou recognized her immediately. "Is it you?" Jing was startled, quickly bowing with a clasped palm. "It turns out to be Donor G. Forgive the lack of welcome." Luou felt puzzled. Is there no one at Cloud Illuminating Hermitage? Why does monk Jing herself need to come out? His gaze fell into the courtyard. Weeds covered the ground, and leaves drifted down, giving off a desolate feel. "Venerable guests, please." Jing bowed slightly. After entering the courtyard, Luou asked in puzzlement, "Are you alone here?" Jing answered with her palms together. "Wu Yan has already left. Now only I remain at Cloud Illuminating Hermitage." Luou stroked his beard and nodded. "Being alone is fine. There are fewer formalities that way. The place is large enough. I will stay here for a few days." Hearing this, Jing did not dare to delay. "Donor G, this way, please." She could not attend to others, as there were not enough hands. Duan Shing shrugged helplessly, glancing at his companions. "Don't look at me. There are no young nuns you were hoping to see. Sort yourselves out." Luou followed monk Jing to a serene room, superior in view, location, and environment. "Back in the day, Donor G discussed the Tao in this room with my master, debated at Cloud Illuminating Peak, admired the moon at Purple Mist Mountain, watched fish at 100 Leaves Lake." Luou remembered these events and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Jing Yan had good talent. Unfortunately, she couldn't eliminate her distractions. Donor G is right. My master said the same. Luou asked how she died. Jing also sighed. "My master's lifespan ended 200 years earlier than it should have." Luou thought to himself, foolishness. Normally, without causing their own demise, cultivators reaching the nascent divinity tribulation realm could live up to 600 years. Thereafter, each new leaf adds 50 years. No one has broken through to the 9th leaf. Thus no one has surpassed the 1,000-year lifespan. The truth of the lifespan limit comes from this. As long as one doesn't act foolishly, living 900 or just over 1,000 years shouldn't be a problem. Why would it end 200 years early? Before Luou could ask further, Jing volunteered. "My master forced an attempt to comprehend the 9th leaf and ultimately failed, depleting her vital essence in the process." Again, for the 9th leaf, Luou remembered Gong Yuandu, who said the same thing before his death. Indeed, using vital essence could shorten one's lifespan, but according to normal rules and cultivation paths, shouldn't humans extend their lifespan during breakthroughs? Why does only the 9th leaf reduce lifespan? While pondering, Jing continued, "Before my master passed away, she made it clear that if anyone at Cloud Illuminating Hermitage breaks through to the 8th leaf, they should not foolishly attempt to reach the 9th. Luou felt quite ironic. When I debated with her, she was spirited and determined to break through the 9th leaf. Master Ji has already reached the pinnacle of the 8th leaf. In terms of insights and understanding, you surely surpass my master. Luou remained silent. Ji Tiandao was at the great completion of the 8th leaf. Could he have attempted the 9th? Then, did Ji Tiandao die because of this? You may do as you please. I shall take my leave. Xian Jing, seeing that it was getting late, did not wish to intrude further and turned to leave. Luou continued to ponder. How many cultivators at the peak of the 8th leaf could resist trying to reach the 9th? If attempting the 9th leaf shortens one's lifespan, and I have a reversal card, does that mean I could be different from others and become the first 9th leaf master in the cultivation world? Luou thought for a moment, then shook his head. Thinking about this now is of no use. I just need to improve my cultivation and try it myself to know. For now, I should think about how to capture these 3 rebels. I need to stay at Cloud Illuminating Hermitage for 5 days. Hopefully, Yu Zhenhai and Yu Shanrong don't appear too soon. With the tool cards on cooldown, I can only rely on heavenly writing. With that thought, he entered a state of contemplating heavenly writing. Meanwhile, near 100 Leaves Lake, Yu Shanrong looked at the reflection of the moon on the lake and sighed. After this battle, I shall live incognito near 100 Leaves Lake. How about that? Siwei smiled upon hearing this. This place is indeed nice, but unfortunately, it's not far from Cloud Illuminating Peak, implying that it was a place their master had stayed before. Do you dare? The most dangerous place is the safest. Yu Shanrong said this and slowly stepped forward, walking on the water as if on flat ground. He waved his hand lightly, and the longevity sword unsheathed automatically, its red blade flashing. Water from 100 Leaves Lake instantly filled the sky, and then fell like a curtain of raindrops as dense as a waterfall. Yu Shanrong merely maintained his position floating on the water surface, not using protective forceful energy, and began wielding the longevity sword. With every lift of his hand, shadows of the sword appeared everywhere. All the droplets were deflected at a terrifying speed by Yu Shanrong, creating holes in the trees nearby. As the water completely settled down, it returned to calm. Crack! A sound was heard as several nearby trees fell simultaneously. Yu Shanrong's swordsmanship had reached the peak, and he alone could do it, not using primal energy or sword forceful energy, purely with the skill of the sword. Not a drop on him. The longevity sword returned to its sheath. Yu Shanrong's face showed a gentle smile. How was that move? 7th junior brother. In terms of swordsmanship, the 2nd senior brother is unmatched in this world. Yu Shanrong smiled. So, even if master himself comes, there's no need to worry. Si Weian naturally believed this. Otherwise, why would he have kept sending messages to inform master of their location? Suishinjan, Sword St. Luo Shursan, Runan Juaping, Yu Shanrong all fearlessly went to face the enemy, even risking encountering their master. But times change. 2nd brother, I'm not questioning your strength, but it seems that our master may have truly made a breakthrough. Upon hearing this, Yu Shanrong's brow furrowed, his feet sinking half an inch into the water. He quickly rose on the water, forceful energy swirling. The water on his feet instantly evaporated. He looked at Siwei, waiting for an explanation. Siwei said, outside Heaven's Will Garden, I saw master stepping on a blue lotus. At first, I thought it was the power of a barrier, but now it seems not. The power of the blooming blue lotus could wash away the divine spell on me. A barrier doesn't have that effect. Are you sure? Sure. Siwei's expression was very serious. Perhaps, our master has indeed found a way to break through the ultimate limit. Hearing this, Yu Shanrong's expression remained gentle, but his tone was slightly displeased. Junior brother, if you're trying to use this as a tactic to dissuade me from fighting our eldest brother, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Brother, you misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I hope not. Siwei raised 3 fingers. I swear to the heavens, that's not it. Yu Shanrong didn't dwell on the topic further, but instead started asking, Junior brother, it's tough. Between me and our eldest brother, who do you think will win? Here we go again. It's tough. Siwei was speechless inside, but outwardly he remained composed. Of course, the 2nd brother. I think so too. It's getting late. Junior brother, you should rest early. As the words fell, a faint blue glow flickered from the direction of Cloud Illuminating Peak like fireflies. The next morning, Siwei, who had been meditating all night, just opened his eyes and saw the 2nd brother standing in front of him. He really wanted to say, brother, standing so close early in the morning is really scary, but he could only swallow those words. Yu Shanrong pointed towards the direction of Cloud Illuminating Hermitage and said, smoke. Siwei nodded. I've looked into Cloud Illuminating Hermitage. After the abbot Wu Nian lost her cultivation, she left, and what remained couldn't hold together. Cloud Illuminating Hermitage effectively disbanded. Only Xian Jing remained. Why is there smoke? Yu Shanrong said softly. Sometimes joy is just so. Wu Yu junior brother, you don't understand the pleasures of worldly life. Siwei smiled. Perhaps. I know what you're going to say. As Yu Shanrong finished speaking, he stepped into the air and flew up, his longevity sword swinging. An 8-leaf avatar bloomed in the sky, 100 meters tall. The 8-leaf golden lotus spinning dazzlingly bright. He stood within the avatar, arms crossed, laughing. Junior brother, after this battle, there will be no match for me in the way of the sword. With that, he added, except for our master. Siwei looked at the avatar with a complex complex expression. Sometimes he thought his second brother was foolish, but other times he felt he couldn't quite understand him. What exactly is this fearsome sword demon pursuing? At this moment, inside cloud illuminating hermitage, Luou also opened his eyes, his gaze sweeping across the landscape, and he spotted the 100-meter avatar miles away. 100 Leaves Lake, miscreants. After Yanrong released the 8-leaf avatar, Luou did not rush to capture him. The cooldown still has more than 4 days left. Hurrying now would be of no help. It's better to wait patiently. There's a situation. Senior, the 8-leaf avatar has been spotted. Duan Xing's voice came from outside. Luou calmly replied, I know. Duan Xing wanted to ask, aren't you going to take action, but felt it too presumptuous. Whether the senior takes action or not, what does it have to do with me? So, he bowed and left the room, waiting for good news from the senior. Duan Xing knew, no matter what, he and the demon-slaying sect could only run errands and cheer before the battle. They couldn't help with anything else. That was the 8-leaf avatar. After all, anyone with a sane mind wouldn't dare approach. After the avatar disappeared, 100 Leaves Lake returned to tranquility, and another day passed. Duan Xing's voice rang out again. Senior, the Underworld sect's flying chariot has arrived. Luou slowly opened his eyes and responded with a good. After a night of contemplation, he felt that only 1/5 of the extraordinary power of heavenly writing had been restored. This level of extraordinary power could at most unleash the strength to repel a nascent divinity tribulation realm master, but it was still far from enough. It was an unavoidable situation. The time was too short, and the speed of contemplation had not improved. Luou walked outside with his hands behind his back, and Duan Xing and the others stood respectfully on the side. It can be confirmed, the pinnacle battle between your first and second disciples will indeed take place on 100 Leaves Lake. It's truly an excellent battleground. Luou ignored Duan Xing and walked out of the courtyard with his hands behind his back. He needed to find a more suitable place to watch, not stay indoors. Although the view from 100 Leaves Lake was good, it was very limited. For battles of this level, which easily span several miles, it's easy to shift the battle zone. Luou climbed toward the cloud illuminating peak, followed closely by Duan Xing and the others. In the distance, a huge black flying chariot approached the shore of 100 Leaves Lake. That black flying chariot resembled a narrow rectangle, with thick array patterns crafted on both sides. The scale, the number of people, the pomp, all unprecedented. The group stopped and watched the flying chariot closely. After reaching near the cloud illuminating woodland, the flying chariot significantly slowed down. Compared to it, the demon-slaying sect's flying chariot seemed like child's play, not worth mentioning. Duan Xing remarked as he watched the flying chariot, I heard the Underworld sect merged with the Orthodox sect and Clarity sect, significantly boosting its power. In less than half a year, the number of disciples in the Underworld sect tripled. I didn't expect even the flying chariot to be changed. What he didn't know was that Yu Xinghai's flying chariot had already been destroyed during the discourse on the Lotus platform. Luou glanced at the flying chariot and then continued forward, stopping halfway up the mountain. This spot is good, very suitable for watching the battle. Watching Luou's leisurely departing figure, a subordinate spoke up. Although sect leader Yu's display is grand and his formations large, I still feel that senior's return to simplicity represents the true strength of a powerful individual. Hearing this, Duan Xing turned back and looked at his subordinate with approval. Makes sense. Senior's return to simplicity, every step solid, without any of those messy flourishes. A strong person should be just like this. Duan Xing looked into the distance. The huge flying chariot had already come to a stop. If not now, when? Senior, Duan Xing couldn't help but say. After hearing this, Luou just glanced at him and did not respond. Duan Xing shivered inside, his palms sweaty, cursing himself for his foolish words. In the Underworld sect, it was rumored that Yu Xinghai and Yu Shanrong's cultivation could match their masters, and some even described the two with the student surpasses the master. The protectors of the Underworld sect, Hua Chongyang, Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Di Qing, are all top-tier fighters, without a doubt. Besides, there are many other masters scattered around in the Underworld sect, including the leader of the Dark Net, Siwuya, his whereabouts unknown. The best strategy for the senior is to hold his forces and observe in secret. Suddenly, Duan Xing felt that the senior truly was a sage, not the hot-tempered, merely strong person rumored on the outside. Meanwhile, Yu Shanrong stood quietly with his arms crossed. Above the water of 100 Leaves Lake, the huge flying chariot hovered by the shore of 100 Leaves Lake, majestic and solemn. Hua Chongyang, the head of Azure Dragon Hall, was the first to come out, bowing his hands. I have seen Mr. Second. The shore of 100 Leaves Lake was quiet. Yu Shanrong did not move, not even opening his eyes. The clear lake, like a transparent mirror, reflected his sharp-featured face. Hua Chongyang, a bit embarrassed, bowed again. Hua Chongyang has seen Mr. Second. However, just like before, Yu Shanrong did not respond at all. Then, Bai Yuqing, Yang Yan, and Di Qing came out one by one, standing in a line, and said in unison, we have seen Mr. Second. Yu Shanrong still appeared as if he were asleep, with no reaction. The four looked at each other, unsure of what to do, making the scene extremely awkward. At this moment, Yu Xinghai, who was seated in the flying chariot, burst into laughter. His laughter rolled over the shore of 100 Leaves Lake, causing ripples ripples and waves on the water. Yu Zhenghai walked out with his hands behind his back, looking down at Yu Shanrong at the center of the lake. Although Yu Shanrong seemed tiny on the vast lake, no one doubted that he could unleash a force powerful enough to obliterate the entire 100 Leaves Lake. Little brother, it's been so long since we've seen each other. How have you become so indifferent and heartless? These 4 protectors of mine are all first class. They've been wanting to test their skills against you, even knowing they would lose. Yu Shanrong finally spoke, his voice calm as water. I'm sorry. Yu Zhenghai asked. Why? Yu Shanrong smiled slightly and said, over the years, I've faced 135 opponents. Only one has not become a ghost under my sword. This includes sword fanatic Chen Wenjie, the northern sword slave Wang Haichao, Green Prefecture's #1 swordsman Master Wang, and the sword emperor of the western region's Luan tribe, Yu Zhengrong. None survived my sword. He didn't need to say more. These titles were already enough to inspire awe. Yu Shanrong raised his head, his gaze sweeping over the 4 great protectors, and said, I don't really recommend that you 4 watch the battle. The 4 exchanged looks again. You saying we 4 are not qualified to fight you is acceptable, but not even qualified to watch? Isn't that too discouraging? Yu Shanrong added, to avoid leaving a psychological shadow. The 4 were speechless. Every swordsmanship master is obsessed with their craft, and many are highly skilled. However, many have fallen into madness from feeling inferior after seeing Yu Shanrong's swordsmanship. Yu Zhenghai laughed heartily. You can be assured of that. Those you speak of are just the fragile ones. If they can't even accept the gap, they don't deserve to be in my Underworld sect. Yu Shanrong nodded. That's very good. Then, Yu Zhenghai dropped straight down, moving very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was steadily standing on the water surface. What was even more astonishing was that the water was completely calm, without any ripples, showing his terrifying control over his power. Yu Shanrong no longer crossed his arms, but slightly bowed as a greeting. I've seen the elder brother. Yu Zhenghai nodded. Please, younger brother. Yu Shanrong returned the gesture. You are older than me. Please, elder brother. Yu Zhenghai smiled. The younger brother is younger. You go first. Yu Shanrong laughed heartily. Then let's go together. Before he finished speaking, primal energy surged out from Yu Shanrong, and he emitted a powerful aura. Come on. Yu Zhenghai, not to be outdone, also released the primal energy within him. The next second, a loud boom echoed, and the water of 100 Leaves Lake, within a few miles, resonated with the powerful primal energy, instantly rising and forming a massive curtain of water shooting into the sky. The water curtain lifted by the powerful forceful energy resonance, transforming into countless water droplets. These droplets, wrapped in forceful energy, turned into numerous sharp, forceful energy spikes, densely falling toward the lake surface. The lotus leaves in the lake were punctured in an instant, resembling a hornet's nest. The huge flying chariot quickly retreated, and Siwuya also pulled back, taking the opportunity to rescue an old man who was fishing by the lakeshore. Yet, at the center of the lakeshore, Yu Shanrong and Yu Zhenghai remained unmoved. The forceful energy spikes dissipated automatically before reaching them, unable to inflict any harm. At this moment, starry brilliance began to emerge behind Yu Zhenghai, radiating light in all directions. Before the water droplets even finished falling, a earth-shattering battle had already begun. A forceful energy seal took shape. Jade Blade. As the voice fell, a weapon wrapped in massive forceful energy spun out. Longevity Sword. Yu Shanrong spoke softly, and the long sword on his back was instantly unsheathed, transforming into a sky full of sword rain, violently colliding with the rapidly spinning Jade Blade in the air. Both remained stationary, blade and sword fiercely clashing mid-air, sparks of forceful energy emitting dazzling light. Everyone was stunned. Duan Xing's mouth hung open, his eyes nearly popping out. Is this a battle? Even if one can't walk the path of cultivation in the future, wouldn't being a mountain worker also come with a good treatment? As for the juniors of the demon-slaying sect, they were dumbfounded, not knowing what to think. This level of battle had already exceeded their understanding, topping all imagination. Although they had imagined various terrifying battle scenes in their minds, none came close to what they were witnessing. Is this the 8 Leaves? If the disciples are this powerful, how strong must Ji Tiandao at his peak be? Senior, who do you think will win? Duan Xing couldn't help but ask Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou responded indifferently. Watch and see. He certainly didn't want this battle to end too quickly. With nearly 4 days left on his cooldown, if they finished now, he'd only have to chase after them with Whitesard taking risks. The scene before him was exactly what Lu Zhou wanted to see. Everything was as expected. Neither of the two was superior. Meanwhile, standing on the huge flying chariot and watching the battle, the 4 great protectors finally understood the meaning of Yu Shanrong's words. The power and destructive force achieved merely through the control of primal energy indicated that the gap was not merely between different levels of leaf opening. Even among masters of the same 8 leaves, the differences were as vast as heaven and earth. As the last droplet fell, the Jade Blade and the Longevity Sword separated and flew back to their respective owners. Yu Zhenghai held the sword in one hand and chuckled. Second brother's cultivation has indeed improved a lot. Yu Shanrong held the sword in his right hand, watching the other intently, and said lightly, elder brother is the same. Yu Zhenghai laughed. In that case, has younger brother's returning to the origin sword technique successfully incorporated the third soul? Yu Shangrong responded, I've heard that no one has ever seen Elder Brother perform the ruling the world from the great mysterious heavenly seal. I would very much like to see it. Before the words ended, both tapped the water with their toes, their forms rising like a flash of red. This signified an escalation in the battle. A more intense forceful energy appeared on the jade blade, its power astonishing. Seeing this, Hua Chongyang quickly reminded, increase the altitude. The people of the Underworld sect, not daring to be careless, immediately responded and started adjusting their positions. Seeing this, Duan Shing felt somewhat intimidated and quietly asked Lu Zhou, Senior, should we move back? Lu Zhou glanced at him indifferently and did not move. Seeing this, Duan Shing felt slightly relieved. At this moment, they were several miles away from 100 Leaves Lake, under a clear sky with a wide view. Although the long distance would have some impact, as a master of the nascent divinity tribulation realm, Duan Shing was confident he could block some of the aftershocks, so there should not be a problem. Duan Shing nodded to himself, pondering how to handle any potential impacts and how to perform well. This was a critical moment. The survival of the demon-slaying sect hinged on this battle, and they could not afford to fail. Yu Zhenghai and Yu Shangrong hovered in the air, facing each other from a distance, their sword and blade vibrating incessantly under the influx of forceful energy. Almost simultaneously, they moved, vanishing in the blink of an eye. The next second, they collided above 100 Leaves Lake. Centered at their point of collision, forceful energy surged, forming a vertical curtain of forceful energy like a golden gleaming guillotine blade, slicing straight into 100 Leaves Lake. Boom! The lake was instantly split by the forceful energy, dividing it into two, with water curtains splashing sky high, creating a stunning scene. Standing in the distance, Siwuya shook his head helplessly and muttered to himself, one simply cannot stay here. Why not go elsewhere to watch the battle? Why go to such lengths? He sighed, swiftly moved, and with a light leap, flew to a mountain peak several miles away, where he sat down cross-legged and continued to meditate, occasionally opening his eyes to glance at the battle. Fight on, fight on. It never ends. Siwuya knew well that these two were too powerful for a victor to emerge anytime soon. Better to rest well during this time and see what happens after they finish. Above 100 Leaves Lake, the forceful energy blades of the two filled the entire sky. The forceful energy of the sword and the forceful energy of the blade collided precisely, scattering shockingly in all directions. The battle gradually spread to the shore, and the tall trees close to the lake began to be affected, their leaves blown off by the forceful energy wind, the trees swaying, clearly unable to withstand the aftermath of the battle. Yu Shangrong and Yu Zhenghai disappeared into the sky. Those watching understood that this was not a true disappearance, but rather because their speed was so fast that the eyes could no longer capture their movements. What could be seen were only the intersecting sword forceful energy and blade forceful energy in the sky, and the occasional bursts of forceful energy that sparked from their collisions. Hua Chongyang wiped the cold sweat from his forehead with his hand, feeling a strong premonition that the battle to come would be even more terrifying. Bai Yuqing looked up at the two in the sky and said quietly, is this what true 8 leaves are like? Hua Chongyang glanced at the other three and reminded, they haven't activated their avatars yet. The three nodded, shocked. If the two were to activate their avatars and employ great supernatural powers, how terrifying would the destruction be? Such a battle was incredibly shocking to others, but to Lu Zhou, it seemed somewhat boring. He shook his head and turned back, flying towards the cloud illuminating hermitage. Senior, aren't you watching anymore? Duan Shing couldn't help but ask, his tone filled with a hint of confusion. Lu Zhou ignored him and continued flying downward. As he had anticipated, Yu Shangrong and Yu Zhenghai were evenly matched, so their battle was bound to last a long time. With more than 3 days left on his cooldown, rather than wasting time, it was better to return to his original residence and continue contemplating the heavenly writing. Hopefully, it doesn't end too soon, Lu Zhou thought to himself. In the evening, Xianjing Buddhist monk came to his door, earnestly advising, Master Ji, there is a duel of masters by the 100 Leaves Lake. To avoid affecting the cloud illuminating hermitage, it might be best for Master Ji to move elsewhere. Upon hearing this, Lu Zhou responded indifferently, do you have the heart to see the cloud illuminating hermitage destroyed? After a moment of thought, Xianjing Buddhist monk sighed helplessly. The cloud illuminating hermitage of today is no longer as glorious as it once was. If it must be destroyed, then let it be. Lu Zhou shook his head and said, stand down. He neither agreed nor refused to change locations. Seeing this, Xianjing Buddhist monk had no more to say and turned to leave. Just as he reached the courtyard gate, Duan Xing came in. After giving a slight bow to Xianjing Buddhist monk, he entered the courtyard and said to Lu Zhou, Junior has discovered that there is a miniature barrier in cloud illuminating hermitage that can be activated. Although Junior's cultivation is far inferior to that of 8 leaves, I am capable of activating the array. Would you like to? Lu Zhou indifferently replied, there is no need to activate the barrier. Junior obeys. Duan Xing bowed and withdrew. If the barrier were activated, wouldn't it just signal to those two renegades that there is a master present in cloud illuminating hermitage? What cultivator would dare to come here? If that scared the renegades away, then all his efforts on the journey here would have been wasted. Lu Zhou closed his eyes and entered the state of contemplating heavenly writing. With 1,000 1,000 years of experience and knowledge, he was no stranger to such grandiose battles. However, for others, this was a rare opportunity to gain experience and insights. Duan, Shing, and the others spent the entire night standing on a large rock watching the battle, and the Underworld sect's 4 great protectors did the same, intently watching the scene of the fight. Time quickly moved on to the next day. Luou opened his eyes and checked the cooldown time of the item cards on the system interface. Luou glanced at 100 Leaves Lake, only to see that the landscape, once full of rolling hills, was now drastically altered. The opposite Purple Mist Mountain seemed to have lost half of its mass, and the forests around 100 Leaves Lake had been leveled. Several nearby slender peaks had been cut off mid-height, creating a shocking scene. Only Cloud Illuminating Peak remained intact, unaffected. Luou thought to himself, if Cloud Illuminating Peak really were affected, then he would have to move. Clearly, Yanrong and Yanrong had intentionally avoided this area. The power of 8 leaves was perfectly exemplified in this moment. Duan Shing numbly scratched his cheek, only to realize he felt no sensation, so he slapped himself hard. Ouch, this is real. He couldn't help but curse softly. Here we go again. After fighting for a day and a night, Yanrong and Yanrong's battle had moved from 100 Leaves Lake to the nearby Cloud Illuminating Woodland. Hundreds of birds and beasts were startled and scattered, and some fierce beasts that couldn't escape in time were cut into pieces by the omnipresent blade Forceful Energy and sword Forceful Energy. Another day passed, and the two seemed to finally stop their intense exchange. At this moment, the jade blade floated on the right side of Yanrong, and the longevity sword hovered a foot in front of Yanrong. Both weapons still emitted strong forceful energy, their presence daunting. How much primal energy do you have left? Yanrong was the first to speak, his tone calm. Yanrong smiled slightly, almost none wasted. What about elder brother? Yanrong looked indifferent. So am I. Yanrong raised an eyebrow slightly. Then let's get serious. Yanrong smiled. Exactly what I was hoping for. Before the words were finished, 2 thunderous booms erupted, shaking heaven and earth. A massive energy resonance echoed across the sky, vibrating the earth. In the blink of an eye, 2,000-meter-tall avatars stood in the air, their presence imposing. Beneath the avatars, 2 8-leaf golden lotuses slowly rotated, emitting dazzling golden light. This is the special mark of the nascent divinity tribulation realm. The 100 Tribulation Insight Avatar, and the 8-leaf golden lotus is the strongest symbol within the 100 Tribulation Insight. Seeing this scene, Hua Chongyang decisively ordered, retreat, move back 10 miles. Siwaya, watching from below, shook his head and sighed. It's getting serious now. Staying here to watch, you'll end up dead without a whole corpse. After saying this, he grabbed the fisherman, leaped up, and quickly flew away. At the same time, as the 2 avatars appeared, the disciples of the demon-slaying sect hesitated for a moment. One of them said, about the senior over there. Duan Shing interrupted, look out for yourselves first. Do you still have time to worry about the senior? Are your brains squeezed by a door? That's right, he's the master of these 2 great experts. Does he need you bunch of useless ones worrying about him? Luou continued to watch the 2 giant avatars, nodding slightly, thinking to himself that all the rumors were confirmed at this moment. Their strength and cultivation were indeed as powerful as Ji Tiandao once was. Thinking of this, Luou's brow furrowed slightly, recalling the scene of Ji Tiandao's impending doom. He suddenly realized a problem. The natural rules could no longer constrain such disciples, yet his own cultivation had not fully recovered. His cultivation in the divine court realm had only recovered less than 2/5, and the extraordinary power of heavenly writing was also not yet fully replenished. Moreover, such extraordinary power is precious, and using it merely to resist aftershocks would indeed be wasteful. Better to hide. Luou decided in his heart, about to turn and leave, but then he suddenly noticed that the 2,000-meter-tall avatars were sweeping towards Purple Mist Mountain. Yanrong and Yanrong, with their 100 Tribulation Insight avatars, moved out with earth-shaking momentum. Cloud Illuminating Peak is a good place. It must not be destroyed, Yanrong said. Agreed. Yanrong nodded in response. With a single slash and thrust, the impact was earth-shattering. 8 golden lotus petals spun like whirlpools, continuously gathering immense energy. Yanrong brought his palms together, standing in front, with the jade blade floating above. The blade's forceful energy, amplified by the avatar, surged 1,000-fold, immense as a mountain. Yanrong leaped up, raising the longevity sword high. Thousands of streams of sword forceful energy swiftly merged into an unparalleled sword beam, fiercely colliding with the jade blade's forceful energy. A loud crash ensued as the immense blade forceful energy struck Purple Mist Mountain, slicing a huge fissure from the peak to the base. The unsupported Purple Mist Mountain began to collapse thunderously, with debris rolling down, a terrifying sight. Standing on a high point in the distance, Hua Chongyang, overlooking this scene, was terrified, his face pale. Yanrong and Yanrong fought fiercely along the way, snapping trees and completely altering the terrain. They continued flying towards the depths of Cloud Illuminating Woodland, with no signs of stopping the battle. Watching the scene unfold, Hua Chongyang's face was filled with disbelief. The 100 Tribulation Insight Avatar consumes a great deal of primal energy. How long can they last? Someone beside him answered, Brother Chongyang, down. You're at the 7 leaves level. If even you're unsure, we 3 are even less informed. Hua Chongyang swallowed hard, turning back to watch the sword forceful energy and blade forceful energy intensely clash between the 2 avatars, his heart filled with shock and awe. The massive sword forceful energy and blade forceful energy clashed fiercely between the 2 avatars, each wave of forceful energy several times more powerful than before. Brother, please take this move, Yanrong said coldly. Yu Zhenhai spoke calmly. All right.